Yeah.
That lip
I'm on my fucking lunch break, okay?
What's happening, everybody? I know I told you a while ago that I was going to show you my BMW that I bought not too long ago at auction, and I never did. So we're going to do that today. Cool. And I know it's not lunchtime. I'm actually home after work, so it's way past lunchtime. But I think now's the time to do this video. And yeah, I'm home. As you guys can see behind me, the garage looks a little bit different, and that's because I moved recently and everything is a mess. Yes, you can see that here. Also, I need more garage space. Let me move this car back so I can show you some things. Definitely I'll be doing a much detailed video later on you know, what to look for if you're planning on buying one of these. But for right now, let me show you the car that I got and tell you a little bit about why I got it, how I got it. Let's go from there. So I was actually at the auction looking for a car, and I had looked at a few different cars because I wanted to get a different deli driver. This one popped up last minute, and I love the interior, and the car seemed to be in pretty good shape. I checked it out, and I noticed that the rear struts needed to be replaced. I know that one headlight was out, and you know, check the engine oil. A few different things that I could check right before I went through the auction block. But I didn't give it a thorough look, which is one thing that I recommend you do not do. You have to make sure that you check everything out very well. I do that for, you know, all the cars except this one. You know, that's why in one of the videos that I was talking about before, I said, you know, I pulled a hoovy on this one because I just bought it on the spot and didn't really check it out too well, which cost me. So I bought this car for I think it was $6,400 is what it came out to, with all the auction fees and all the stuff, which I was not happy about. I was hoping to get this car for about maybe tops $5,000, which is I think what it should have been. But I got into a little bit of a bidding war with another guy at the auction. And you know, again, something that I don't recommend doing. I recommend setting your price at what you want it to be and then just sticking to it. I didn't do that. I didn't follow my own advice, and now I am a little bit screwed on this deal. Well, anyway, you know, drove the car home. Actually drove pretty well. I drove it all the way from Philadelphia, and everything ran quite well. I took the car into a local shop that specializes in European cars, and they started to go through the whole car. I wanted to do a full inspection, which I recommend everybody does. I do that on all my videos. I tell you every time, get a PPI, which I did after the fact, just because, you know, this auction does allow you 24 hours for you to contest, or, you know, any arbitration that you want to do, you can do. But I wanted to get the car checked out anyway, just so that I know what I'm working with. And they found some issues. Boy, did they find some issues. They actually gave me a quote for over $9,000 worth of things to fix on this car. So here are all the things that they found wrong with the car. First of all, the pre-purchase inspection was $150. Typically, I say $150, $200 is what you're gonna find for most of these. But you can see here, when you get one of these inspections done, they go over everything. And that's why it's important to do one of these before you buy a car from a private party. At an auction, it's a little bit different because they don't allow you to do that. So you can see here, they road tested the vehicle, they did a visual inspection, went over everything, measured the brakes, and everything else. And these are all the things that they're recommending that I do. And you can see here, it's a lot of stuff. Replace front tires, replace rear shocks, oil filter housing, gasket, oil pan gasket, oil change service, all these different things. And all that amounts to the grand total of $9,259.09. Literally more than the value of the car itself. I'll go into more detail on what to look for when you're buying one of these on my, what to look for videos. Keep an eye out for that video coming out soon. So here's what I've done to the car so far. I replaced both front tires. They're run flats. The cooling system was air bound. It had air in the system, so we had to flush it out. We also had to replace one of the gaskets where the radiator hose goes into the cylinder head. Now, what's interesting about this piece is that the head, the coolant, and the oil they both travel through this same housing, and they're just separated by a little O-ring, which is typical German engineering. I know technically when you think about it, oh, that's great, right? The coolant can cool the oil, the engine oil, but the problem is that when you do have a failure, you can easily lose your engine. So we replaced that gasket to make sure that there were no leaks. In order to do that, obviously, is a big job. You have to replace a lot of different parts, and in doing that, we broke actually one of the ends for the radiator, so we had to replace the radiator, which was a very expensive job because this car has a special sensor that measures the airflow, and the fan actuates based on that sensor, and it was just a mess. So also we had to replace the lower control arms on the front, upper control arms in the rear, both rear struts, brakes in all four corners had to be done, so we did that as well. There's also a valve on top of the valve cover that I think it's for your evap system, your fuel system. It manages the vacuum and all that, and the diaphragm inside of that valve broke, so it was letting air through and it wasn't doing what it was supposed to do. And this valve is part of it's glued to the valve cover. So in order to do that, you have to replace the whole valve cover. And this car has the vanos. So the actuator that changes the lift on the camshaft sits right there on top of the valve cover. So you actually have to remove all that, and in order to get the valve cover out and replace, and then you have to reprogram. It's a long process, it's a big job, costs tons of money. I found a fix for it where you can buy the valve off eBay, replace that, and glue it back in for about $30. I did the work myself, so that saved me a little bit of money, but it was a lot of work. And in order to do it right, I'm OCD, so I had to make sure that everything was completely flat and clean, and it took way longer than it should have. It took me about 4 or 5 hours to do the job, and then I had to let the glue sit for 24 hours to make sure that it's sealed properly before I can actually run the car and find out if it actually fixed the problem. Luckily it did, and it's still running good. So I also fixed the headlight that was out, and I think that's all that I fixed on it. I mean, You know, at this point, I'm well into the 9,000 on this car, which I could have bought one in better shape off the streets for it. But hey, you know, it is what it is. Hey, would you look at that? I got an error message. Low front tire. It tells you exactly which tire needs air. Easy fix.